Hi, everyone. So my name is Mickey Hudson, and I'm going to be doing today's mySewnet Facebook Live. Today's Facebook Live is going to be on the mySewnet, the Family Tree Wizard. And if you're on a Mac, it is the Family Tree Assistant. It is under the Create tab. So we're going to be playing with that today. And this is by request. I had quite a few of you ask me for this. And just a special treat for you Mac people today. Today we're going to be doing it on the Mac. So for those on the Windows and the PC side of things, don't worry, it's virtually identical. But I'm just going to be doing it on the Mac side. So it'll be a nice treat for us Mac people. But you will see that there's very little difference between the two. Okay, so I'm just going to have everybody have a chance to get ready. Feel free to ask any questions. Any questions that I can answer, I will. Any questions that I cannot, I will get back to you. And then I know there's a few of you people that are going, because I've talked to you, going, stop talking so much and get right into it. So let's get into it. So the family tree, if you're unfamiliar with it, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the family tree. So you can make an heirloom project, quilt, etc. They're gorgeous. Let me show you rather than talking about it. So I'm going to switch over to my computer here for a moment. We're going to go ahead and open up our mySewnet embroidery software. Now, one of the things, whether you open it up on a Windows or a Mac, this is one of the wonderful things that you will see on the mySewnet embroidery software. Is as soon as you open it, we've got like a quick reference here. So I can go directly to the module or wizard or assistant that I want to go to. And in this case, we are going to go right to the family tree. Right. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new chart for you. That was my last one. And I am going to show you real quick for those of you that are on the Windows side. I'm going to show you, take a look here, and I'm going to swipe over to the Windows side, and you will see here that's virtually the same. You see that? So we have descendants, ancestors, individuals, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all that is basically the same. So when you select, I'm going to close this again. When you come over here, the first article here is to create a new chart. You can create a descendants chart that'll start with, grandparents, parents, grandchildren, etc. Or you can do an ancestor chart. So if you have somebody famous in your ancestry or somebody not famous, but you can start with the famous, the older. Let me show you what I mean. So here you would start with the individual that is your ancestor, and then it would divide off into there until this would be the current family members. Whereas when you go to descendants, it starts with the parents, the children, the grandchildren, and the lowest rung here is the most recent. So those are the differences between those two. But I'm going to go ahead and start a new descendants chart by clicking on the descendants chart. What'll happen is, as you can see here, I've already got a work in progress. So if I have not saved this, it's a good idea to do that first. But I have saved all this. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new one. Now, this new one, it's going to give you a warning to let you know, hey, I'm going to erase this. Make sure you're ready. And I want to erase it. So here we are going to, sorry, my phone's going off. We are going to go ahead and give the given name. So in this case, I gave it my husband's name. So his given name was Jesse, and his last name was Sen. And he is a male. And then I'll go ahead and click continue. On the Windows side, I think it says next. And then the partner, which is the spouse or partner, is me. So Mickey. I'm not giving you my maiden name, but I'll give you my current name. And now our children. I actually have one child. And because the chart looked funny for what I was trying to show you guys, I invented a child. So Charles would have been her name if she would have been born a boy. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. Whoops, I want to make sure that my daughter is female and my pretend son is male. So any questions about this so far? This really is pretty straightforward. You're just going to fill in the blanks kind of a deal. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. So now it's saying, please enter the family names for Jennifer, my daughter. So this would be her husband, who's Kevin, and Brian. And she has 2 children right now. And then she's got a bun in the oven. So we don't know if she's a boy or a girl yet because it's still too early. So my grandson, female, and I'm just going to go ahead and put male. Okay. So we'll go ahead and continue. And we'll let Charles be married as well. Okay, and they have no children, so we'll continue. And then once we're done, so my grandson is 5. So he doesn't have a partner yet. But that's where we're at is, do we have any great-grandchildren? We do not. Everybody see up here where we're looking at the great-grandchildren here? But you can just keep on going and going and going. And then when you're done, you can just go ahead and close. And you will see here where I've got everyone listed here, including the bun in the oven, Brian. So do we have any questions or comments about that? It looks pretty straightforward. What'd you say? All right, so now let's get into some of the fun of designing. So we'll come on over to the lettering. That is a very good question. Can you add more than 6 children? Let me go to, yeah. Let's just do tab vector. I'm just making up names right now. I can't add another partner. That is a very good question. Okay, so that is one of those I can't answer right now, but I will find out and come back and answer in the comment section. I will answer that in the comment section later. So I'll put in a request, see if there's an answer to that, and I will come back and answer in the comments. Okay? All right. That's a lot of children. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close. Oh, we're still looking at me. Let me come back here and look at this. All right, so we've got our names. Are there any more questions? That was a good question. Oh, before I go on to the lettering, let's finish talking about this. So here I can go back and edit. If I come over here and I see there's a mistake in a spelling or the names or anything like that, I can come back and change the first individual, or I can come back and change to children, partners, etc. So you can, it's very easy to make edits and changes to it. Like I said, it will hold this for you until you come over and create a new chart. Once you've created a new chart, it's going to delete all this. So while we're still working on this and you're good, you can come back at any time. Even if you close the program and then come back later, it's still going to hold the last one that you did until you tell it you want to do a new one. Okay. Now over here under display names as, you can say I want to do just the given names, which is just the first name. Or you can have the given and family name above each other. Or you can have them beside each other. Now remember, this gets a little large. So one of the things, it's fine at whatever as aesthetically what you're after, it's fine, because I'm going to show you how to get it into one overall project. So I want you to go by what you like and not worry about the size. Does that make sense to you guys? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and make it, leave it. No, we'll do it here for now. I can come back and change it. All right. All right. So any questions? So we can start a new chart. We can edit. We can change our display. Okay. Up here on lettering, we have access to all of the fonts that are available in the software. So all of your fonts, including any that you have added. So you can come here and try on different fonts. So one thing I do want to talk about here too is fonts, because you see how this is Galleria UC and then the size. This is the name of the font. The UC is uppercase only, and this is the size. And let me show you what that would look like. So you see how it's all uppercase? All right, I'm going to change that because that is offensive to my eyes. There we go. And then I'm going to come and answer this question. So the question is, can the chart include more than 3 generations? So I'm going to come back to the family. I'm going to go ahead and edit, and I'm going to edit my grandchildren. Okay. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to close. I'm going to edit my great-grandchildren. So Ryder is my 5-year-old, but let's just say, you know, he's now grown and he's married. So I'll call her Mary, and I'm just totally typing stuff in. But let's say he's got one child named Bob. Okay. And then if I continue, Lily doesn't have any children. Bun in the Oven doesn't have any children. So yeah, it looks like that. It does look like that is as far back as it goes. We'll come back and look at the ancestors. We'll see if the ancestors go back farther, but it looks like it only goes back like 4 generations versus 3. Or one more generation than the descendants chart. But again, will Amy and or Meredith, can you keep track of these questions that I'm not answering so that, and then just throw me an email so that I can get back to them? Because this is another good question. I just don't have an answer off the top of my head. So I will find out the answers, even if it's good news or bad news, and I will let you know. But my guess is that is as far as we can go. Okay. So we're all good about the fonts, I'm assuming. Any questions about these fonts? Now, one of the nice things about the mySewnet embroidery software too is that we can change our fonts. So let's say I had I'll go ahead with casual. I can make changes if I want to. So I can change the size, I can change the spacing. So the size of the font, I have my size range is 17 millimeters to 35 millimeters. It always defaults to the smallest. So I can make it bigger if I would like, and it's going to make it larger. The spacing is going to, the gap is going to change. Let me just make it extreme so you can see. It's going to change the gap in between the letters. I don't know if you saw that. Let me see. But you see how it's spacing out the letters? I'm going to put my gap back to 0, and you'll see that make that little change. Now the spacing is going to be the space between the top and the bottom. And again, let me make this large so you can really see. See how that spaces that out? Now this is one of those fun programs that I'm a big fan of getting in here into the software and push buttons. Click on things and what does this do? What does this do? And this is a great one to do that with. Just get in here and start pushing buttons. So we've gone through the size, we've gone through the layout with the gaps or the spacing. Are there any questions about the gap and the spacing? So here we have the stitches. Your connection, I can either cut in between all my little connections, or I can do a running stitch in between all of my connections. So depending on the size of the font that you use, sometimes with really small fonts, I prefer not to use my cutter. However, in larger fonts, I do leave my cutter on. You're going to find what you like to do that works for you. So, but for today, we're going to leave the cutter on. And then down here with stitch type, this is something that's fun we can do with our fonts. And we can do this with almost all of the built-in fonts. This is a satin column. So if I click on the satin column, I'm going to go back and let you see that again. So under the stitches, where it says stitch type, I have a satin column. If I had a font that had more than one thing going on, so like on something like this, where I have satins and running stitches and fills, this would have that list. When you came here, it would have all of those listed. So you'd have the satin column, the running stitch, the fill, what each little piece of the font. In this particular little font, there's just a satin column. So when I come here, it will open up my satin column. Now, what's so wonderful about this is on the Mac side, there is this little button here with 3 little dots. On the PC side of things, it will be a little triangle arrow pointing down. But this will allow me to, if I click on that, it will allow me to choose any kind of fill that we have. We have over 250 different fills to choose from. So every font that you have here, you can change and modify. And that's another very good question, Linda. The question is, if you have a family tree filled in already for 4D, can you bring it into mySewnet? I don't know if it will work directly with the wizard or the application because it's a finished design. But as far as bringing in the design, you can use that design in mySewnet embroidery software, definitely. But I don't think it will, because it gets exported. And then once that happens, it's pretty much fixed as stitches. So I don't see how it could go back through the program again, being in from another program. Does that make sense, Linda? Okay. Does everybody understand that you can change your fonts and fills? What underlay is this is going to, when underlay it's basically a foundation for stitches. So it'll do some stitching before it does your decorative stitching. So you can either say just zigzag down before we do all of the heavy stitching, or just do an edge walk around the outside of the design before we do the heavy stitching. Compensation is one of those, it's really kind of hard to explain. But compensation is one of those that if you're working with a new type of fabric, so you're working with a fabric that's heavier than cotton, you may want to test out a little bit of your project and see if you need to change the compensation. So compensation is, you will really notice that if you have a design that has an outline, because the compensation, as it stitches, it'll start pulling the design because whatever the fabric is, your stabilizer, it can pull a little bit of your design. And if you don't compensate, sometimes you can have a little gap there. So what compensation will do is kind of change that so it almost overlaps a little bit. So you can, when it's stitched out, it's exactly where it wants. So if you're working with, out of your normal comfort zone and you like the way it stitches, but now we're going to be stitching on a wool and it's a little thicker, do a little test stitch. So if you have separation or if you have overlap, that's where you're going to want to change your compensation. Give me a thumbs up if that makes any sense. Or if you're give me a thumbs down if you're confused. Not in the likes, but in the chat, please, because that way I can. All right, Phil Carlton to the rescue. Thank you, Phil Carlton. Compensation literally means compensates for the pull of the fabric, like a knit. The higher the number, the more it extends the length of the stitches. Thank you, Phil. Compensation is one of those things that I understand what it does, but I don't really know how to explain it. So that was perfect. So thank you, Phil, very much. Any questions about that? Please don't ask because I can explain it. I mean, I know it. I can't explain it. Phil did a beautiful job right there. All right.
I'm not sure I understand.
Constant and gradient, we can actually change how, I'm not going to get into this. This could be an entire Facebook Live all by itself with the constant and gradient. But we can change the density. And so the density The bigger the stitch or the bigger the number, the more space in between your stitches. And the smaller the number, the less space in between your stitches. And so that's what the density does. But we'll talk about that gradient in a future Facebook Live. All right. So everybody kind of good on that so far? All right. So we can come over here and change our thread color. So if you double click, we can come and change our colors to anything that we would like. And we'll actually see it right there. Okay. This is a program where you can get lost, because when I play with this, I get completely lost into the fonts for like hours, and then it's like I have to save it for the next day because now I need to come back and I have more designing that I can do. So here is the embellishment part of what's going on here. So here I can frame each individual, or I can get rid of the frame. So here I'm getting rid of it. So you see how there's just the names. And here I have embellishment. So here under the categories, I have two categories to choose from. I have frame and I have flourish. So if I choose frame, it's going to put a frame around the outside. Frame. And this is where I'll choose from. So I can change my frames. I can change to corners. I can change to side pieces. I'm going to do a frame. When I come over here to the frames and flourish box, I have all of these to choose from that you will find in your mySewnet embroidery software. So as you can see, there's quite a few to choose from. And I'm just going to scroll down. So there's just so many to choose from. So yeah, so I can spend another couple of hours just playing over here. Can everybody see that okay? So we could go extremely casual, extremely formal. And see what'll happen is here now, if I come over here, I'm going to say, all right, so I like this frame or this flourish, but now my fonts are too little. So I'm going to change this. I'll change this to 35. And it's thinking. All right. So this font may not work. So let me go choose this guy. I'm not sure about that one, Amy. Can you bookmark that and I'll come back to it? So I got a question and I'm going to come back to that. Okay. And I'm going to go back to my frame. as usual, I'm running out of time. So we've looked at frames. We've looked at editing lettering. We've looked at frames. And then there's also flourish. Now there's a whole bunch of different flourishes that you can choose from, including top to bottom, etc. So what? Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. But let me choose this little guy here. So you'll see he comes to the bottom here. I can say I want him to be above instead, so right here. Or I can say I want him to be both. You see that? Once again, I can change my fill. So I have a statin column and I have a running stitch. So those are my two different stitches going on. And that is the two things that I can change. All right, any questions about that? Other than the GED file, which I will get back to. Okay. All right, the last choice here in the family tree assistant is the connectors. I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little better what's happening, maybe not that much. But the connectors, what they're talking about, let me get rid of, do below, let me make my, my flourishes a little less for right now. There, that way they're not so intrusive. But the connectors that we're talking about is, if you'll notice between these two, there's a little connector right here, meaning these two were partnered to create these children. And these two were partnered to create these children. So these are connectors, and these are the connectors from the children, this couple, to these children. All right. So up here we can change our connector from a satin stitch, a running stitch, or none. I can just say guess. But whatever connectors that you personally find aesthetically pleasing for whatever your project, you can select satin or running stitch. But as always, we have some abilities to change. And we can do this here. We can change the width. We can change the density. Again, the density, the bigger the number, the more space in between. Okay. See if I can make that a little bit bigger. I'm going to change that to a 5. So what I'm doing is changing this width here of these connectors here. These connectors here. So when I change the width, I'm going to go back down to, let me just go to a 2. You're going to see this connector change. Oops. Do you see how narrow it is now? Okay. So any questions about this? Oh, one more thing I want to talk about. Right now I have this set to double lines, but I can also change it to a single line. Oh. Trying to make this so you guys can see. So I can either do a double line or a single line. I'm going to go ahead and continue with the single line. We'll go ahead and click done. I do not want you. I want you. All right. Other than Linda and the other two questions that I'm going to be asking in a bit, are there any questions about what we've covered? So you just, it's very simple. You just bring in your family tree. You can change the lettering. You can change the frame and flourishes. You can change the connectors. You can change the colors. So everybody with me there? So what happens when you bring your, I'm going to turn my grid off because it's a little busy. But what is going to happen is when you bring your family tree in, it's going to pop it into a hoop. This is not going to be any hoop in your collection. So if I come up here, this hoop is 1629 millimeters wide and 761 millimeters tall. That is gigantic. So what we need to do is we need to break this design up. So here, when I select this design, on the Mac side, everything is going to be over here on the sides, across the top, or in the pull downs. Now on the Mac side of things, on the Windows side of things, if you go to your Home tab, you're going to find everything right here. Okay, so here is your split project on the PC side of things, the Windows side of things. And on the Mac side, we want to make sure we're in our Design tab, which is your version of the Home. And you will find the split design is right here. Split project is right here. The little scissors. So I'm going to go ahead and give the split project a click. And it's going to open up the design. And I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm going to zoom in real quick. Got to see if you can see this. But there are these white little lines going across and up and down. These are the size of the hoops. So this is how many hoopings there will be in this particular project. Now, one of the things that I like for you guys to look at is one of the things that I try to avoid whenever possible is there's a split right in between this name here. And I try to avoid that whenever possible. Because what you need to do is it's going to be multiple hoopings and we want to line everything up. So sometimes the largest hoop is not your best choice. So we can come in here and we can change the hoop to any of the hoops that we have. And here we can break things up a little bit better. So I'm still getting that bob, but you know what? I'm going to quit because my grandson does not actually have a child. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. I'm going to come and get this great-grandchild. So I'm going to delete Bob. And this is just for the Facebook Live to keep the time down. If I was really doing it, I would not actually omit my grandchildren. I would figure out the hooping. But I just, for the sake of today, I want to kind of keep it simple. So remember, everything is going to affect how many hoopings that we have. If you want to do an entire quilt, then the larger fonts are going to be great. If you don't want something this big, you may want to go in and edit the fonts and other things to make it less hoopings. But once you're going to come in here and you're going to do the hoopings, I will sit here and play for a while and pretty much go through every single hoop that I have until I get a layout that I like. And the overlap here is the overlap space in between. It defaults to 50, I believe. So you should see this change. So you see how wide, I don't know if you guys, how well it's going to show up, but it's these little wide spots here. So that is where our overlap is. And that's kind of the area of forgiveness so that if we have to scooch things together. I personally usually run around 25, um, and that's just my personal preference. Um, okay. And everybody will find their personal preference, which is why they do allow us to change things. The split method here, you have a choice of intelligent or a straight line. So let me zoom in here a little bit, because here I have a one of these connector lines here. It's that gray line here, and I have a gray line here. Now, if I go ahead and continue, give it a second. So here we're going to go through, but here's a good spot. So here, so you see the connector here, and you see the connector here. You see how they're not perfectly straight? If I were to change it to straight, these would all line up perfectly straight. Now, one of the reasons that I personally like the intelligent, I clicked back on the wrong, is because our eyes visually go to certain things automatically. This is why you have often heard, like if you're going to do manual applique, don't start or stop at a corner, because our eyes visually just automatically go to a corner. So if you have any kind of goof where you start or stop, or any kind of weird overlap where you start and stop, it's quite visible. Whereas if you start away from a point, the eyes don't automatically go there. So that is kind of, all right, so I got two good questions. That's why he keeps hearing me kind of stutter a little bit. I will come to those. What was I talking about? Oh, so yeah. So if I have a design that I'm splitting, right? If I split it straight down, sometimes that is obvious, no matter how careful I am with relining things up. Whereas if I have something that is a little bit zigzaggy, there's a little bit of forgiveness there. Am I making any sense? All right. Okay, so why do you prefer 25 millimeter to 50 millimeter overlap? Again, it's just a personal preference. I stuck to the 50 when I was first starting to do split designs and rehooping. It kind of, it gives, there's a little leeway about how much we can move and position, because what'll happen is, if you look here, so I've started the design here, but I have to rehoop it, and I need to line this up. So what'll happen is the overlap, it just gives me a little bit of boo-boo room. So if I need to scooch it away. So by making that a smaller number, it's going to actually put more design into the hoop and give me less ability to adjust it inside the hoop. Does that make sense? Please say that makes sense. Because what'll happen is when I rehoop, I'm going to have to connect the connector line here. So when I come in and line it up, the edge of my design may be here. So I can move the design on your embroidery machine, but you can move the design so that it'll come over and it'll actually touch. The overlap is that area of moving ability. So when I started and I really didn't know what I was doing, or I wasn't comfortable, I made a bigger overlap. As I've gotten more and more comfortable, it's gotten a little more narrow. Also, there are apps that are available if you have a mySewnet Wi-Fi capable machine, which I do, and that has eased things up. So it gets smaller. But I'm hoping that that makes sense to you. Julie, if you could give me a thumbs up, if that makes sense, or a thumbs down in the comments, because up at the above, I'm not going to know it's you. So I'm going to go ahead and quit because another question, which is very curious because so here are my flourishes. And the question was, can you change the size? So I can change the length of the stitch, but I can't really change the size. But I can come over and change how these lay out. I can change the fonts. I can change that kind of stuff until I get something that I'm happy with. Go to done. Go back here to grid off. All right. Is everybody kind of understanding about the overlap and the split method? Mostly. So you are saying that you can't move it as far as the hoop if you have a smaller overlap. Let me kind of show you what I'm talking about. Let me move this. Give me 1 second to move this over and I will try and show you what I am talking about. Because this really is kind of the important part of being able to do this, is to be able to stitch it out. So I do want you guys to be able to stitch it out. And let me grab the water soluble. Okay. And let me change this view. All right. So what I'll have here is I have, okay, let me take a look. Let me change this here. Nope, this here. Oops, you go away. And I'm going to go ahead and quit. I'm going to minimize this real quick. Oh, I got lots of windows open. Okay. So here I have my family tree. And if you look here, let me just open these up. Make this a bit bigger. And let me get rid of my grid. So does everybody kind of see this here going on? Right? So this is where the overlap comes in. Okay, because ultimately I need these to line up like so, right? But what's happening is these are in two different hoopings. So the overlap is how much forgiveness they're going to give us in between these two. So the more, let me get rid of you. The more forgiveness that we have, the easier it is going to be to line these up. So here, this is already done. Let's just say this side's already been stitched, and we're now lining up this guy. So basically, if I have a small number, it's going to kind of really put me here, and I have all this place to play. If I have a bigger number, I'm going to be more over here. It's going to load the design, more over here. So all of a sudden now I may have some resistance on moving this, because if I move, I'm out of the hoop a little bit. But the compensation is, I mean, sorry, not the compensation. The overlap is again, Phil, I'm not doing a great job explaining this. I know what it does. I'm just not explaining it well. But it is how much space they are allowing you to play with to line these two up. The more space, the more room for forgiveness. The less space, the less room for forgiveness. So I encourage you, it defaults to 50 for a very good reason, because that's a very good safe spot to start. And then as you start getting comfortable with that, then you can start cranking, or you can leave it, but you can start cranking it down so you have a little more room. Have I completely lost you guys on that? Because you guys are asking very good questions. I just wasn't really ready for these questions, so my mind wasn't on that chapter. All right. So what'll happen is any embroidery machine can do this, but there are some perks if you have a mySewnet Wi-Fi capable machine. I'm going to talk about that. Is it correct, hi Kristen, is it correct to say that any of these designs will require several hoopings? If so, that is very helpful to know. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to. Let me bring you here, because I made one here. Delete these. Whoops. So I made one here where it all fits in one hooping. This is my 360 by 260 hoop. So this doesn't require any rehooping. But if you want to make it larger, like if you wanted to do a quilt size or a wall hanging or a banner or anything like that, the larger you go, the more hoopings you are going to have to do. So yes. But it is a great, these things, if you're new to rehoopings, this is a great place to start, because it, doesn't require a whole lot. If you plan on like a fat quarter, you can choose fonts that are low stitch count, and it's a great place to practice your rehooping skills. So because it doesn't require a lot of fabric, it doesn't require a lot of thread, and it's a great opportunity to practice rehooping and positioning, because once that happens, all of a sudden it becomes, once everything clicks, rehooping is really, really easy. So what is the advantage in having a Wi-Fi capable machine in doing this? So it's not just a Wi-Fi capable machine, because there are some brands out there that are Wi-Fi capable, but it has to be a mySewnet Wi-Fi capable machine. And I will show you what some of the perks are. So one of the biggest perks are the apps that come with it. So I'm going to go ahead and change my view here so that you can see my iPad. So one of the apps is the mySewnet. We want to go cancel. So it's the mySewnet app. And if you'll notice that design placement part of this app, this is where it gets really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my app. I'm going to select design placement. Let me get back over here. So I'm going to select design placement. I am going to choose whichever machine that I happen to be using, and it's going to access my camera. So what I will do is I'll come here, and I've got my fabric hooped and ready to go. And down at the bottom, you will see there's a little camera icon. I'm going to go ahead and take the photo. And so there is the photo of my hoop. Okay. So now at the bottom, it'll say I can either retake the photo or I can use the photo. So I'm going to go ahead and use this photo. And up at the very tip top, you'll see where it says 120 by 120. That is our hoop size. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm using the Creative Supreme hoop, which is the 360 by 260. And then I will come and move my corners into the position so that I can make sure everything is right where I want it. Everybody with me so far? So now what I can do here is at the very bottom, there are arrows. I'm going to click the next arrow on the right-hand side of my screen, and it's going to let me know this is what, are you happy with this? Yes, I am. So now the green paper airplane is going to send it, right over to my Wi-Fi capable machine, my mySewnet Wi-Fi capable machine. Hang on, my camera just decided to jump all over the place. There we go. So here it's going to ask if it has permission to use this. I'm going to say yes. And here you'll see there is my design in the hoop. All right. Please don't fall. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close, stop mirroring. All right. And then I can come over here and choose, I'll have to come back. I'll come back to the split design. I'm just going to take this, and I can send this right over to the machine that I just put it on. So I'm going to send it. You'll see him come over here. If you see now, I can come and position, whoops, not the whole thing, just the designs. So I can come and position oh, hold on a second. I'm going to get my design. I'm just going to do my back. I'm going to come and group this because I didn't group it. There we go. I didn't group it in the software. So here I can come and I can position this exactly where I need it to be. And I want to so what I'm going to look at is this little connector right here. Let's see where I can come and just line that sucker up right there. And I can fine tune it, etc. How cool is that? So the apps, there is a Facebook Live called mySewnet 101. So you can Google or you can search through the videos on mySewnet Facebook group, or you can go to YouTube and Google search mySewnet Embroidery 101, and that will talk about how to download the apps and stuff like that. Okay. All right. Amy, the first one that you did went too high. So I have our next Husqvarna Viking Facebook Live is Wednesday, January 6th with Kathy Fromm, who will be creating memories with quilting. I have the next Facebook Live on Thursday, January 7th at 2 p.m. Central with Dee Marie, who will be embellishing and sewing projects with cording and decorative stitches. And the next mySewnet Facebook Live is Wednesday, January 11th at 2 p.m. Central. And that's with Wendy Owens, whom you've met before. And she will be discussing the Sketch program. Now, the Sketch program is a PC-based only, but I use the idea of the Sketch with digitizing. So even if you have a Mac and you don't actually have the Sketch program, it is still worth tuning into because those techniques can be done with your digitizing module. So there we go. I do have one more last thing I want to show you on this because I got sidetracked with the question, but I want to make sure that you guys can see this. So once we have split this, then we still need to save it. So if we can go ahead and continue, and then here is the important part here, because once we continue, I have one section out of 28. Now, for those of you that are like panicking, I did make my font particularly large, which is why this is so gigantic. You might not want it this large, but I can scroll through all of my different modules or different hoopings. But if you see how large this is a 260 by 260 hoop. That's quite big. So, but you do want to export all sections. You can select any extension that you need it to be and continue or next. And then you want to name it. I'm going to call it Family Giant. And it will export all of the pieces for you. You can also print. You can print the finished product so that you can see where everything is going to hoop together. You can print the individual templates if you are a template user. And you can print your worksheets, which have your color changes and stuff like that. And once you're done, you're good. Let me come over to my family tree. But you will see here where Family Tree Giant, they will all be numbered. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it will stitch out as you go. But it is very important that once you split that design, if you choose the splitter, that you export it and not just close. I want to thank you all for coming. I will get the answers to those questions, and I will actually answer directly to you on the comment list, so you should get a notification when I've done that. And I really want to thank you for sticking with me, even though I got tongue-tied, and I really appreciate it. But don't forget our next Facebook Lives, because we're always trying to bring content to you. So I will talk to you all soon, and I look forward to seeing some of your family tree projects, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.